Okay, listen. That's a tambor de agua, or water drum, one of the most intriguing and rare instruments from the Amazon that my guest today, Antonio Teoli, is helping preserve. You see, Antonio is the founder of the Amazonic, one of the first audio companies in the world that is recording instruments played by indigenous people. Instruments are used for festivities, rituals, and more importantly, giving back to those communities. We talk about his fish out of water story, moving from the concrete jungles of Sao Paulo, Brazil, to the actual jungles of the Amazon, in pursuit of his dream of making music for video games. He shares with us about how an indigenous family member gave him the life gift of spirituality and a great connection to nature and the planet. We talk about the importance of protecting street dogs and the love that dogs bring to our lives. We talk about the Amazonic, his project of saving those native instruments and sharing them with the rest of the world. If you ever wanted to learn about music instruments of the Amazon, or you've been wanting to pursue a creative project that is close to your heart, you just don't know how to, or even finding ways to give back to the things you love, this is going to be an episode you're going to love. So stay tuned. Oi, Antonio, tudo bom? Hello, how are you?
Hi Frank, how are you? That was a good Portuguese, man.
Oh, obrigado, obrigado. Yes, Portuguese is my first language. My mom is Brazilian from Paraná. So, we grew up in a house speaking Portuguese, but I was born in Paraguay, so we spoke Spanish there. And what about you? Tell me where you're from.
So I am from Brazil, originally from São Paulo, but I lived in many places of Brazil. I lived in Florianopolis for 5 years and a half. I lived in the Amazon for 4 years and a half. And right now I'm living in Los Angeles for 4 years.
That's amazing that you were able to experience all those places. And now you're in the United States, like myself. And you're such a talented composer. I've seen a lot of the game soundtracks that you made. How'd you get involved, like creating music for video games?
So that goes a long way back. I'm with 36 years right now, and I'm started professionally when I was 16 years. Basically, I always wanted to be a musician. My dad started teaching me guitar when I was like 1 year. Then I started learning piano when I was 7. I played tuba on an orchestra in Brazil when I was 12. So my whole life I've been surrounded with music. And but for some reason, I always wanted to do music for video games. That was like my goal. I grew up playing Sonic, Legend of Zelda, all of these classic Sega and Nintendo games. And but that was my dream. But in Brazil, as you can imagine, the whole South American community was in the game industry was very, very, like 20 years ago, it was pretty much inexistent. And so I still decided to do it. And then I did my graduation, which was in game design, was the first class in South America to do this, graduation. And I got lucky. I got hired on the 4th month of the university, and I as a composer on a game company in Brazil. And rest is history. Basically, I started doing what we call advert games in Brazil, which was like games connected to advertisement. That was the core industry in Brazil back in the days. So I did like music for games developed for Coca-Cola, Global, Barbie, Iva, Pioneer, like those kind of stuff. Some Disney game as well. But then later on, I went to another game company called Hoplon, where we did the biggest MMORPG developed in Brazil ever, called Taekwondo, where I worked there for 5 years. That was the moment I lived in Florianopolis. Then I started my own company called Andromeda Sound to provide sounds for other game clients. Later on, the moment I leave Hoplon, Samsung reaches out to me, someone from Samsung, telling me that they were starting their very first game studio in the world, and that was in the Amazon. and they reached out to me. I remember like one day before Christmas in 2013, and they were like, "Do you want to work for Samsung? We really liked your portfolio. We need someone to be art director and lead composer here." I was like, "Sure, Samsung. That's awesome. Of course. Yeah. Where are you guys located?" "Oh, we are in the Amazon." I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, tough, man. I don't know if I want to live in the Amazon, even though I love the Amazon, but I think it's going to be too much of a difference between São Paulo and the Amazon." But they were so kind. They're like, "You know what? We're going to fly you here and we're going to take you for a tour." And so basically they flew me to the Amazon, and I spent I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 days there, and like they show me everywhere surrounded the city, gave me this whole food culture that I didn't know about at the time, which I freaking love it. And like it was a very magical journey, and by the end of it I was like, yeah, I want to work here, and that's you got me. So I stayed there working for 4 years and almost half. But then I feel like I needed to do some kind of next step in my career. So I decided to quit everything, apply for my visa here in the US, and move here. And that's where I am right now in Los Angeles, West Hollywood. And it's been fun.
That's incredible. And let me ask you something. You were from São Paulo, that is one of the biggest city in the whole world. And then you go to Manaus, right in the Amazon. How big of a culture shock it was for you?
Oh, it was huge, man. Because like in São Paulo it's like what we call a concrete jungle, right? So it's surrounded by huge skyscrapers, and then you go to the Amazon, where you have a very different type of city, beautiful places, of course. But once you start to get out of the core area, you start to see a little bit of the sadness that surrounds, like a lot of street dogs, a lot of poor people, which is very sad, and kind of it broke my heart to see that. So it was like a reality shock in many ways, good, positive, and negative ways. The positive was that people there are so awesome, and they were so hardworking. They were so friendly. Everyone welcomed me so well. I've made some friends there that I will carry for the rest of my life. Food is amazing. The music is amazing, and also being connected to the nature, which is something that I love. It was truly magical, like being able to work on a city area for Samsung, and then during the weekends being able to drive 30 minutes and be on the Black River doing paddle boarding with botos around you. That was freaking cool, man. It was, for me, it was a perfect combination, honestly. Like, okay, I can work here, I have like the city vibe, and then I can get out. I can like meditate, I can enjoy the nature. So it was pretty cool. Only thing that was tricky, man, it was like the bugs. There are some huge bugs there. I got some weird bites.
Yeah, and you're mentioning the boto. That's the Amazon dolphin that has like a pinkish hue. And legend says that, sometimes the boto would turn to a handsome man to lure the girls into the river, right?
They would get the girls pregnant while their males are outside hunting or doing their stuff. That's what the legend says. They say the boto like when you go visit, the tour guide says to the lady, be careful because the boto can get you pregnant. So that's so funny.
Yes, that's an interesting legend of the Amazon. And you were surrounded by the music of indigenous people in the Amazon. And is that what inspired you to start the Amazonic? You going to tell me more about that?
Yeah, first of all, my great grandmother, which I was very fortunate to have her in my life until my early 20s. She was a native person, and she grew up on one of the native communities in São Paulo, right? And she was such a spiritual person. She was definitely special. We used to call her our shaman, the family's shaman. And she used to tell me stories about, like her community and that kind of stuff. I always feel somehow connected to it. But of course, you grew up in São Paulo. It's hard to, in the city, it's hard to be connected to that subject because, again, you're surrounded by skyscrapers. The lifestyle, it's so crazy and so intense. And that sometimes you forget about that other side of life. And when I moved to the Amazon, I immediately feel reconnected to my grandma. And the story she told me, and the more I start to learn about, the more I fell in love. I tried many times to do, for example, a game on Samsung. I tried to pitch them many times to do like a game about the Amazonian culture because there are so many amazing stuff, but unfortunately it never went through. They had other amazing ideas, of course, for the games. And there was a little bit of disappointment from my side because I really feel like, okay, I am in the Amazon. We need to do something about it, like that would be so cool. So I never quite had the idea to do anything on my own. And also, of course, the financial power to do anything on my own like I would have with Samsung, of course. So one day, after I moved to the US, after I left the Amazon, I was going to, compose for a game. And I was like, I want to do something very different here. And that's when I was at the shower and I had this spark. I was like, oh my God, all of those amazing sounds that I've heard in the Amazon and the what's the word? Like the festivities that I saw with the natives, with their music and everything else that I always in love. I was like, why I didn't record a library with that? So then that's when I start to like scratching the idea, like, okay, what can I do to make this not just a cool project sounding wise, but something that gives back to the Amazon, something that I wanted to do while I was working at Samsung as well. And that's how the Amazonic started, and it was basically the idea of record a very special sound library that musicians and composers could play these instruments virtually, like all composers do, using professional tools, and then also do something that goes back to the community, like the musicians, and also like social causes as well. That's how the Amazonic was born.
That's a phenomenal story, and there's so much to interesting things that you mentioned, like for example, your grandmother and having that connection with her, and being your family shamans. Is there any kind of happy memory that you share with her? Do you want to tell us about something interesting?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think you can see here on my camera, but I have a picture because I have these pictures that surrounds me. These are my dogs, and I have 5 pictures here that are my special moments in my life. And one of these pictures is me holding my grandma a few months before she passed. She passed with 92, as I remember. But there are so many amazing memories with her, man. Seriously. She was, I don't know if, I know some people are skeptical about that. It's always about what you believe and what you don't believe. But I am a believer in the spiritual world, and she was a seer. She could see things. And I remember, like, for example, let me tell you a funny story, a quick one about my mom. So how my mom and my dad met. My mom grew up on a kind of like, let's say, medium high class family. And my dad grew up in a very poor family. So my dad, when he was young, he knocked at my grandfather's door, house, right? And asking for a job. And my great grandmother, which was in the house as well, she heard someone knocking and she asked my mom to answer the door. And before my mom reached the door, my great grandmother say, "This is your husband. You're going to get married to him." Before she even opens the door. And my mom told me like how she used to mock her, like in a respectful way. She would be like, come on, grandmother, are you crazy? No, I don't even know him. And she opened the door. She's like, oh my God, there's no way this will happen. So I don't know what happened in between, but 6 months later, they were like about to get married. So, that kind of stuff. And also like, every time I
That's
used to,
phenomenal.
yeah, every time I used to have a new girlfriend, let's say that, I used to always like consult her, my great grandmother, like, hey Nona, I used to call her Nona. Hey Nona, what do you think? Do you think this is the one? She's like, and she would say stuff like, no, I don't think so because of this, and this, and that. So no, that's your girlfriend, the person you marry is this one, blah 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 blah. And even my career, she would be like, you know, you will be doing this stuff when you're like at this age. She used to like foresee. It was crazy, man. I'm not inventing this. Is freaking crazy. And when she passed, I really feel lost because she was like my guidance, and for other members of my family as well. My family is huge. Like my nonna, she had I think 11 kids, so family is huge. But yeah, it was definitely a special moment.
Yes, it's incredible, and I totally believe you with the story because it is something that we have experienced in my life. My mom is that way too, and I remember have girlfriends come over, and my mom be like, "Nope, she's not gonna last." And it's incredible. It's such a phenomenal connection that you have with your nona, right? And it inspire you to reach out and create this project. And what I think is beautiful of this project is that you give so much to the community. And I seen recently where you were going and buying food and medicine for street dogs. And that's a really big issue in South America. We see them wandering everywhere. And what led you to get inspired to give some of the profits of the Amazonic sounds to help street dogs?
Yeah, I have a huge love for animals, man. That's my if anyone who asks what my dream is not like winning Oscars or anything like that on my composer career. Is actually having a lot of money to so I could have this huge land and just have stray animals like dogs and cats. And I used to work for some organizations in Florianopolis. We used to rescue some dogs, and every Saturday we would go to this place where they are, where they live, and they are getting ready to be adopted. So we'd go there and help. These dogs should be prepared to be adopted, and sometimes we'd go to people's house to check if the dog was being taken care, well care. And yeah, it's I always feel the connection, and I knew like when I had this, part of the idea was like, hey, sending money back to the community is it's not just native people, but it is native people as well, but it is also other causes, and that includes dogs, stray animals overall, like dogs and cats, and again, like it's so hard to describe the situation there unless you live there. It seriously, there wasn't a single day in a single week that I was driving to work and I wouldn't see like a dog dead on the street. Sometimes more than that. It was very heartbreaking. I remember like that would just ruin my day. It would like drag me down. And all my dogs are street dogs that I have. I got dogs that are they were like at the edge of death, with lots of diseases, and I would be like, okay, you're my mission. I'm gonna make sure you have the best life possible. And so yeah, it's I just feel connected. For me, it's all part of the necessities and the problems that we face, in particular in the Amazon. But we have a street dogs problem in the whole, as you say, the whole South America, right? I don't know where it is worse or where it is less worse, but I think it definitely is like a third world country situation, sadly.
Yeah. And I'm the same way too. Every time that we get dogs, we get it that we adopt. We have Magpie, that is 18 years old now. She's have live a happy life, and then I have Laika, and I always feel so much respect for everybody that supports and help the adoption and the rescue of animals. My friend Zuneba that does it on the Navajo reservation. Big respect. My friend Julia in New Mexico that uses her birthday to raise money for a dog shelter, and yourself, raising money by creating this amazing product that is a sound library of Amazonic sounds that people can use for their movies, for their games, to put money back into these animals. And I just think it's incredible the life and the love that I have received from my dogs. And I think about all those dogs that could give love and life to different families. I don't know if you saw the movie Prey recently. Is the one with the predator versus the Comanche girl, and she has a dog, and that dog was rescued. I don't know if you know that. They went to a shelter and they rescued this dog, and 2 weeks later, he's one of the biggest stars in the whole world. And it's just about those dogs. If you're thinking about adopting, like, this is a perfect time to do it. I know a lot of shelters, they're full of pets. And if you have the space in your home, like, definitely do it. Your life is going to be more enriched by it.
That's true.
And
That's. I
go
didn't know
ahead.
about the dog on Prey. Actually, I haven't watched yet. It's on my list. But that's so cool to know that the dog was a rescue dog, and that's amazing.
It is amazing. And I read that they filmed the movie and they were putting to test audience. And the number one comment was, "We need more of the dog." So they went back and they reshot more scenes with the dog.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, maybe the next dog that you adopt is gonna be the next Hollywood movie star. Who knows? And from those sounds that you capture, uh, would you want to maybe run to some like sounds that you were able to capture? Explain a little bit about them, just maybe one or two.
Sure, you mean like the sounds that I recorded in the Amazon?
Correct.
Yeah, for the Amazonic AMA one, I recorded 109 instruments, as far as I remember, which was a lot. I promised myself I'm never gonna do that again because that was insane. And there are some instruments. All of the instruments are pretty amazing, to be honest. But there are some instruments that really caught my attention. And I remember one is called tambor d'água, which is basically a water drum. And this is a huge instrument. It's not small. It's a big and heavy instrument. It's made of a gourd, a huge one. I'm talking about probably like 90 centimeters, almost 1 meter big. And so what happened is that the João Paulo, which is the creator of this instrument, he basically worked on it in a way where he cuts in half, he remove everything inside, he do some treatment on it, which I don't know exactly what it is, and then he put some water inside, and then he puts on top of this water other two other gourds, very small ones that looks like almost the size of a coconut, and he puts some I don't know the name of it, but basically these coconuts, they float in the water, right? So basically he plays with some sticks, and what happens that every time he hits those gourds that are facing the water, float in the water, you have this boom, 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 boom. It's such an alien word. It's like completely out of this word sound. And I remember like listen to that for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. It was definitely one of the coolest instruments to record. And like another thing that I also think it's important to highlight, it's because like the moment these musicians arrived at the studio with their instruments, which was like research and talk about it, all the kinds of stuff, and you hear the instrument there in front of you for the first time, it's an amazing experience. And not just that, but basically my process is like asking the musicians, okay, play the instrument the way you play this instrument, and they play. But what happens is that sometimes they design those instruments to be played only in one way, and part of my work there is respect that, capture this, and ask them if they are willing to expand the possibilities of sound. So, and when they say yes, which is usually what happens, we sit and then we start to like discover extra sounds that these instruments can make. And then there is a learning moment from both sides where I am trying to not just learn about the instrument, but try to expand possibilities. And the creator of the instrument is also relearning about the instrument that they created. And it's so funny because a lot of the times they go like, oh, I didn't know this instrument could make this sound. And we capture all of these sounds around. So every instrument was very special because of this experiment and experience we had to go through to record these sounds. And it's very stressful to record, because recording samples, for those who recorded sample libraries out there, they know it's like heat like light again, now stronger again. So in a particular way, hit that direction, hit this way. It's a very extensive and tiredness process, but it's cool. We always have fun. So every instrument is very special for me. But tambor d'água, which is the water drums, is definitely my favorite.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, I saw a video of you doing a record in the Amazon, and you set the mics and the cables, and people were dancing around the microphone and stepping on the cables, and there was a bird that was I think it was like a macaw. It was like chirping. So I can only imagine the difficulties of being out there in the field to capture those sounds in such a high quality.
The field was very intense, because we had a lot of problems, as you just described. But we also record some instruments on a local studio there, and but it wasn't also much better than recording in the field, because this very small studio that we record AMA1 was lacking a lot of isolation. So first of all, Amazon rains all the time. So there was no isolation for the ceiling. So we had to stop the recording many, many times because of rain. Second, buses would pass on the street of that studio all the time. So the moment we were recording like very low sounds, and the bus just passed by, we had to redo it. And third, which was the most interesting, this studio that we recorded was on top of a carpenter. So every time the guy would turn on the I don't know the name of that, the saw, first of all, he would come all the way through the recording, and also he would bring a huge buzz in the electricity. So we had to conciliate the recording time with the carpentry, with the thunderstorm god, and the buses passing by. So not just it was very difficult to record this instrument, but also there was an extra level of challenge because of this studio that we record on it. It was definitely a trip, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene of I think it's in Indiana Jones when he's trying to break the ground, and there's a guy stamping, and he wants to do it at the same time as the guy is stamping, so that way the sounds get like muffled. It's phenomenal. And as we wrap up here, I just want you to think about, you live in so many different places, you have so many different experiences. What would you say for people listening at home? Is there one thing they can do to protect the planet?
Yeah, there are so many things that I would like to say. The first thing that comes to my heart is that living now for the first time in a first world country, United States, where everything is available for you. You have all kinds of food, all kinds of everything, very easy to reach. And it just breaks my heart to see the amount of food that is wasted here. I grew up, even though my mom came from a rich family, when I grew up, everything in terms of money was gone. So I had a very, very rough childhood until my 15s. Like we starved, we had to pick leftovers from people at the malls. That shit, I don't even go there because I'm gonna cry. But food for me was always something that was like sacred. We never wasted food in our house because if it was just one bean left in the plate, my mom or my dad would be like, you know how many people would kill to have this extra bean, and you're fortunate to have it. Eat it. Uh, so I grew up with this mentality, and every time I see here in the US, as I'm sure this happens in other first world countries as well, people like just wasting a lot of food, and then you realize that one third of the world food is going to trash. One third, and this could actually, I think, almost fix the world starvation problem. I think it's a matter of consciousness. Like be thankful and be mindful about the food you have in your plate, and every time you waste food and all the resources as well that it's necessary to bring that food to your place, just be aware of that and try to eat with responsibility, if you know what I mean. Like try to eat with awareness of all the costs to the world and people that were necessary to bring that food to your plate, and try not to waste it. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's beautiful said, because that one potato that you don't eat and you throw in the trash is not only that one potato, is all the water that was used to grow, all the pesticides or fertilizers that were used to grow the potato, all the distance that potato traveled, all the carbon from the transportation, all the labor that was made for picking from the ground, packing, taking to the store, the freezing. I mean, we can keep going of all the work there is. Yes, and I think you bring a good point. It's like, let's be thankful, grateful, and let's curb our waste. And I want to thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I feel like we have a really good conversation, and I look forward for having a partnership with you. Let's see where we can collaborate in the future. And as we wrap up here, is there some sounds that you would like to play from the library to kind of get our audience into the Amazonic groove?
Sure. I think the music for the trailer that I composed, only using the sounds that I recorded at the instrument, I think it's a cool example of the sounds you can achieve with your using the sounds of the library.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Antonio. It was really nice talking to you. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado, Frank. Valeu.
Falou. Tchau, tchau. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you appreciate our conversation as much as I did. I want to give special thanks to everyone who has given us a nice review on Apple Podcasts. It's so heartwarming to see the positive impact our show has had. And I hope you share this episode with a friend, as this is how we grow our message of protecting Mother Earth. Thank you. Aguje.